Let me set the scene for you. You're in a client meeting, you spent a couple of hours over the brief with everybody, and you feel like you're getting a very firm understanding of what's going on. And then finally somebody says it. Can it be headless? Everybody in the team begins to tighten up and frantically look at each other. Headless, what's that again? I know I've heard of headless, but I'm not sure if the team can actually do that. In your typical agency scenario, the term headless or headless CMS can sometimes be thrown around as a bit of a buzzword because it gains quite a bit of traction and is often thought to be pioneering and the next best thing in web technology. In most cases, people don't need a headless CMS, and the chances are that if you propose this to your client, you could end up over-engineering what was seemingly quite a straightforward brief to begin with. With that said, however, headless CMS solutions are absolutely incredible and they most definitely have their place. So the question isn't can it be headless, the question is should it be headless? So what's a headless CMS? Well, before we get into that, let's take a little look at what a traditional CMS is. Now normally when you build a website or an online application, you have what's known as a front end and a back end. The front end is responsible for what the user sees when they visit your website, whereas in the back end, or the CMS, is responsible for where you control all of your content and other administrative duties. Typically with these solutions, whether it's something like WordPress or Drupal, you have the front end and the back end sort of conjoined together into a single code base. So in the industry, the front end is typically known as the head, which I think is quite fitting because it's essentially the face of the website, whereas in the back end, or the CMS, is often referred to as the body. Now with a headless CMS, what you're doing is you're taking that front end and you're taking that back end and you're actually decoupling them, or to get literal with it, you're actually going headless. Okay, so now you might be asking, if I've detached the front end from the back end, or the head from the body, how does it work exactly? When you look at a traditional CMS, as everything is there in a single code base, it's all kind of there together already. However, with a headless CMS, what you need to do is you need to be able to create a static front-end application which then speaks to the back-end through the use of APIs. An API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it essentially acts like a little road which can serve data or content or anything like that which is connected to it. Now that is of course an oversimplification of an API. They are a lot more complex than that and they offer a lot more. However, just for the benefit of this video, if we consider them to be little roads that carry data across, we should be fine. Okay, why should I go headless? There are loads of reasons why you might want to go headless, but I would say the two biggest benefits are going to be both speed and performance. Customization, meaning that the developers have free reign over what technology they use for the front-end application. There is unmatched flexibility in how and where the content is displayed. Finally, they are a lot more future-proof and scalable, meaning that they're able to adapt to new technologies over time. Now, fortunately, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. All of those incredible features I've just mentioned don't exactly come out of the box. They are going to require a little bit of time and they can get quite complex. And as we all know, when you mix both time and complexity together, that typically means there's going to be quite a big cost. Okay, so by now, we have a better understanding of what headless CMS is. We know how they work, we know when we might use one, and we've been through a little bit of a pros and cons list. But the question now is, when should you actually use a headless CMS? As with all projects, it will come down to whatever the requirements are. But I would say a really good example is when a business needs a multi-channel presence. Let's take Nike for example. They have a huge online presence and it's not all through one single website. They have their e-commerce stores, they have campaign websites, they'll have microsites, and they have a series of apps that you can get on your phone as well. The brilliance of a headless CMS is that you have one master CMS where you control all of your content and connect all of your online presences to it. And you've got to admit, controlling maybe a dozen websites and applications is going to be a lot simpler to do from one master CMS than it is having to log into individual ones each time. So which headless CMS should you use? Now I've been fortunate to work with a whole different series of headless CMSs over my time, and I've got to admit, for the most part, they're much of a muchness and they're all pretty good. To name a few of them, I've used Contensys, Contentful and Sanity, but if I had to choose my favourite, I'd probably choose Strappy, and for me that is purely because it had the best looking user interface in the back end. So when you're coming to choose a solution for yourself, always go for one which is going to meet the client requirements as best as you can. However, in the event that you haven't got any specific requirements, I would always say just try each of them. Check in with the development team, find out what your current tech stack is and see if you can find a headless CMS which matches that as close as possible. There are ones out there which match things with ASP.NET, there are things that are PHP, and then there's other bespoke solutions as well. So in summary, headless CMSs are pretty brilliant and they do have a lot to offer, but because they are more advanced, they are often a little bit more costly as well. Your focus shouldn't immediately be, can we build it headless? The focus should always be, should we be building this headless? Thanks ever so much for watching the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you found it quite insightful. If you do happen to like the video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing, as it really does help my channel grow. Those of you that are new here and maybe don't know me, my name's Adam and I've been a digital project manager for over a decade now. If there's any more agency or tech related insights that you'd like me to go through, let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to make a video. Thanks again for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.